The air outside the Los Angeles courthouse felt heavier than usual. Crowds gathered early in the morning, pushing against barriers, trying to get a glimpse of the man who had once been known only for his music, style, and success. But today, he was known for something far different. Truth. Diddy stepped out of a sleek black SUV, wearing a dark suit, sunglasses hiding the weight in his eyes. His walk was slow and quiet, but every camera turned toward him like he was a storm walking into the building. People whispered, shouted, reached their phones high to capture the moment. The streets outside the courthouse hadn't been this loud since the OJ trial, and Diddy knew exactly why. Today was the first public hearing in what the media had already named the Gigi cover-up case. As Diddy walked into the courtroom, silence took over the room. The judge, jury, attorneys, and public spectators were already inside. And across from him, seated calmly at the defense table, was Gigi Hadid. She looked flawless, as always. Her hair pulled back, her suit sharp and black. No makeup except for a touch of powder. But behind her eyes was something else. Fear maybe, or guilt, or calculation. She didn't look at Diddy as he entered. She just stared forward like a statue, rehearsing the same expression she wore on 1,000 runways. The judge called the court into session. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but microphones were. And every word Diddy was about to say would reach the public within minutes. When it was time for him to speak, Diddy stood up. He looked at the jury, then turned his eyes toward the cameras pointed at the door. His voice was calm. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. But his words felt like thunder. "I didn't come here to hurt anyone," he said. "But I'm tired of protecting people who wouldn't protect me. I'm tired of lying to myself about what I saw." He paused. There's a side of the industry no one talks about. Not on award shows, not in interviews, not in magazines. It's hidden, it's dark, it's dangerous. And some of the biggest names in the world are part of it. Gigi Hadid is one of them. Gasps spread across the courtroom. A few reporters outside began tweeting quotes instantly. The words, Gigi Hadid and dangerous industry started trending within minutes. Diddy continued. In 2019, I was invited to an exclusive party in Cannes. Only a few people were there. Top executives, influencers, models, music moguls. Gigi was one of the hosts. That night, something happened that I can't unsee. There were contracts being discussed behind closed doors. People were being promised success in exchange for silence. He looked directly at the judge now. They weren't selling clothes or records. They were selling control. And Gigi wasn't just standing in the corner. She was part of the plan. He told the courtroom about a young artist he brought to that event. A rising star. Full of talent. That artist left the party that night in tears, vanished from the public eye, and never released a single song again. When Diddy tried to ask questions, he said he got phone calls telling him to drop it, that this was bigger than him. "I got scared," Diddy admitted, "and I regret staying quiet." He said he later discovered emails, messages between Gigi and two powerful music agents. They used coded language, planned meetings in safe locations, and mentioned names of upcoming influencers who needed to be handled carefully. "I have those emails," he said, "and they've been submitted to this court." Gigi still didn't move. Her hands were locked together. Her lawyer whispered something to her, but she didn't nod. Outside, news stations were already breaking into scheduled programming. Breaking. Diddy names. Gigi Hadid in courtroom. Scandal ran across CNN, TMZ, and YouTube live streams. Inside, Diddy wasn't finished. "They told me to stay quiet or risk losing everything. My endorsements, my career, my life. But you know what? Some things are more important than fame. What happened that night destroyed people, and the truth should have come out a long time ago." He stepped back from the stand. The room was quiet again, like no one knew what to say. The judge called a recess. As the courtroom emptied, Gigi walked out through a side door, surrounded by her lawyers. She said nothing to the press, no statement, no denial. But the look on her face said it all. This was just the beginning. Back at his hotel, Diddy stood by the window as the sun started to set behind the city. His phone rang again and again. Everyone wanted a statement. Everyone wanted an exclusive. But he said nothing. He had said enough, for now. What the world didn't know was this. The documents he submitted weren't the full story. There were more names, more files, more recordings, and in the next court session, things would get even darker. The second day of court began with an eerie quiet outside the building. The crowd was bigger now. Not just media, but fans, protesters, conspiracy vloggers, and influencers all trying to catch a moment of history. Everyone was waiting for the next bomb to drop. Inside the courtroom, Diddy sat calm, confident. His suit was sharp, his phone off. He had waited years for this, to say what no one else dared to say. He wasn't afraid anymore. Not of Gigi. Not of the people behind her. He knew what he had, and what he had couldn't be ignored. The judge entered. The jury settled in. Gigi's seat was empty. The room buzzed. 5 minutes later, the side door opened, and Gigi Hadid entered flanked by 3 lawyers. Her face was more tense than yesterday. No smiles, no performance. Just cold, tight silence. She took her seat, kept her eyes down, and waited. Then Diddy's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we have new evidence that was cleared overnight. We request to introduce verified text messages between Ms. Hadid and multiple industry executives. Gigi's legal team objected instantly, but the judge overruled. Admit the evidence, he said. Let's hear it. A large screen rolled into the courtroom. The first message appeared in plain black text. Make sure he doesn't come back asking questions. Keep him busy. Offer a deal if needed. Gigi to redacted. The courtroom gasped. The second message was worse. He saw too much that night. Can we find someone to redirect his focus? Someone he trusts? Gigi. The jury looked shocked. One woman covered her mouth. A man on the bench shifted in his seat. Gigi sat still, but her lips pressed into a tight line. Her attorney leaned over and whispered again. She gave no reaction, but she knew what was coming next. Diddy's lawyer cleared his throat. These are just 2 of more than 30 messages we've recovered, Your Honor. Some of them were deleted, but we pulled them from a cloud backup. He looked at the jury. These weren't casual messages. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was coordination, a plan, to silence a witness and protect a system. Another message flashed. He's too emotional. If he leaks anything, we deny. Period. The room filled with murmurs. The judge struck his gavel. Order in the court. Gigi didn't move. But she looked directly at Diddy now, and for the first time since the trial began, she looked like she knew she was losing. Just when it felt like things couldn't get any more intense, the courtroom doors opened again. And in walked someone no one expected to see. Bella Hadid, Gigi's younger sister. Gasps erupted in the courtroom. A reporter dropped their phone. Paparazzi who had been locked out started screaming through the windows. Bella walked straight down the center aisle, ignoring every look. Her hair was tied back, her black coat long and simple. She wore no makeup, no jewelry, and no smile. The judge spoke first. Ms. Hadid, are you here under subpoena? Bella nodded. Yes, Your Honor, I have something to say, and I want it to be on the record. Gigi's eyes widened. Her lawyer stood, objecting again. Your Honor, this is not pre-approved testimony. Sit down, the judge said. Ms. Hadid may proceed. Bella took a deep breath. I've been quiet for years, she said. And I love my sister. But I also love the truth. She looked straight at the jury. I was at that event in Cannes too. I wasn't supposed to be. I flew in with a friend. They didn't know I was coming. But I saw what happened that night. I saw people taken to private rooms. I saw Gigi whispering with 2 men who weren't part of any fashion brand. Gigi leaned forward, whispering harshly to her lawyer. Her hands were now visibly shaking. Bella continued. I didn't understand everything at the time. I was young. But later I heard Gigi talking on the phone saying things like, we handled it, and he'll stay quiet. I thought she meant a PR issue. But after what I've seen and heard these past weeks, I know better now. I know it was about Diddy. Dead silence. I'm not doing this to destroy her, Bella said softly. I'm doing it so no one else gets destroyed. She walked out without another word. She didn't look back. The courtroom remained frozen. The judge called for a lunch break. Outside, the world exploded. Bella testifies against Gigi. Hadid family divided in courtroom scandal. Texts, witnesses, and lies. Did Gigi know more than she admitted? In the hallway, Diddy leaned against a marble pillar and closed his eyes. His hands were steady now. For the first time in years, he didn't feel crazy. He didn't feel alone. People were finally listening. But he also knew this wasn't over, not even close. Because the next file in his possession, it didn't just name celebrities, it named corporations. The courtroom was silent, but the outside world was chaos. Since Bella Hadid had left the courtroom after testifying against her own sister, the internet had gone wild. Hashtags like Cham Hadid Split, Diddy Truth, and Fashion Scandal were trending in every country. News anchors debated every word. Influencers reacted on live streams. Millions of people who never followed courtroom news were suddenly glued to this case like it was a movie. But inside, Diddy stayed calm. He didn't care about the views. He wasn't here for followers or fame. He had lived in the dark for too long. He had watched too many people get hurt. Now he wanted the truth out, no matter how ugly it got. And it was about to get uglier. The judge entered the courtroom once again. People settled. Gigi Hadid returned to her seat, her face tight and pale. She was still dressed perfectly, still quiet. But something about her had changed. The cracks were now visible. Her sister had spoken. The texts had been exposed. And now something even worse was coming. Diddy's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we are ready to present the next file, a collection of digital photos recovered from a private cloud server. These images were deleted, but our forensics team pulled them back. We believe they show direct proof of industry-level involvement in the 2019 Cannes incident. The judge nodded. Proceed. A screen rolled in again. The lights dimmed slightly. The first image appeared. A blurry photo of a large mansion in the south of France, circled by bodyguards. That was the location of the secret 2019 party. Then came the second image. Inside the party, a group of people stood in a circle, laughing. But it wasn't just models and celebrities. There were two powerful CEOs, one from a top modeling agency and another from a billion-dollar fashion label. And in the middle of them, Gigi Hadid, holding a glass of wine, speaking closely to one of the men. Her mouth was covered by her hand, but her eyes were wide, serious, focused. Another photo flashed. This time it was a smaller room. Diddy was in the photo, sitting on a couch, speaking to a young artist. The same artist he had talked about in court the day before. The one who disappeared from the public after that night. In the corner of the image was a shadowy figure. But when zoomed in, it clearly showed Gigi watching them from the doorway. The courtroom started whispering again. The judge banged his gavel. Diddy spoke softly from his seat. She saw him break down that night. She saw him cry. And she still did nothing. The final image appeared. It showed a list printed on official modeling agency paper. It looked like a simple booking sheet. But the names weren't for runway shows or magazine shoots. Next to each model's name were initials, dates, flight locations, and some names were circled in red. One of the names? The young artist Diddy had brought to Cannes. Another name? Bella Hadid. Gasps filled the room. Bella, sitting in the back, looked down and covered her mouth. Your Honor, Diddy's lawyer said, we believe this list was used to manage who would be invited to these secret parties and who needed to be kept under watch. This is no longer about one person. This is a system, an organized machine. Gigi's lawyer stood up, furious. Objection! These photos were obtained illegally. This is a violation of privacy. The judge held up his hand. Sit down. We'll decide the legality after reviewing the chain of evidence. But if these photos are real, they change everything. Suddenly, the courtroom doors opened. A man in a sleek gray suit stepped in. He wasn't a celebrity, but people who worked in fashion knew him instantly. Richard Gere, the CEO of one of the biggest modeling companies in the world. He walked straight up to the judge's bench and handed over a sealed letter. "Your Honor, I represent multiple corporations that have just been named in this trial," he said. "I request immediate privacy motions be filed and that all media be removed." The judge read the letter, raised an eyebrow, and looked back at Richard. "Are you asking the court to silence the public over evidence in a case that alleges industry-wide abuse and manipulation?" Richard didn't blink. "I'm asking you to protect business reputations." The judge stood, frustrated now. "Mr. Greer, this is not a board meeting. This is a courtroom, and in this room, the truth matters more than your image." Cheers could be heard from outside the doors, where people were listening through small live speakers. Richard turned to leave, but before he did, he looked at Gigi. She looked back, not with fear, but with something colder. They knew each other well. Diddy whispered to his lawyer, "He's not here to stop this. He's here to remind her what's at stake." As the court session ended for the day, the judge announced a review of the photo evidence would continue tomorrow, behind closed doors. But he made one thing clear. If these documents are real, then this case won't just be about Gigi Hadid. It will be about every powerful person who helped keep the truth buried. Outside, fans started holding signs. "Justice for the voiceless." "Fashion hides ugly secrets." "We believe Diddy." In his car, Diddy sat in silence, replaying Bella's words in his head. He knew what was coming next would be dangerous, because the next name in the file was someone even more untouchable. The morning after the photo evidence was shown in court, something happened that no one, not even Diddy, saw coming. It started quietly. Just a 12-second clip uploaded to a small, anonymous YouTube channel. No title, no tags, just a shaky screen recording. But the first voice heard in the clip changed everything. It was Gigi Hadid. Her voice, unmistakable, calm, smooth, and very clear. "If she talks, that's it. He'll come after us, especially him. We need someone on our side." Then another voice joined in. Software nervous. Familiar. The internet knew it instantly. Ariana Grande. The video cut off before anything else was said. No context, no faces. But in less than 20 minutes, the video spread across Twitter, Reddit, and TikTok like wildfire. News anchors interrupted live broadcasts. Was Ariana Grande part of this too? They asked. What was she afraid of? By the time the courtroom doors opened again, the public had already judged. The hashtag number sign Ariana named was everywhere. Her fans were split. Some defended her. Others demanded answers. The court security had to double their team as protesters and cameras crowded outside the building. Inside the court, Gigi Hadid's expression had changed. For the first time since the trial started, she looked nervous, pale. Her hands stayed in her lap. Her lawyers whispered quickly beside her. Diddy sat quietly, eyes locked on the judge's bench. He hadn't expected Ariana's voice to appear in this, but deep down, it didn't surprise him. She had been in Cannes, too. He remembered seeing her arrive late, through the back entrance. No press, no photos, just one bodyguard and dark glasses. The judge entered. "Before we begin today's proceedings," he said, "I need clarification on a new video circulating online. I've reviewed the audio. It does match the voice profiles of Ms. Hadid and Ms. Grande." Gasps filled the room. The judge continued, "We will open the floor to both legal teams to address this." Gigi's lawyer stood up first. "Your Honor, we do not confirm the authenticity of this clip. It was illegally recorded. We don't know when or where it was taken. It may have been edited or deep-faked." Diddy's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we have already submitted raw audio analysis. The waveform and tone match 98.7% accuracy with Ms. Grande and Ms. Hadid. Our cybersecurity team has confirmed the file metadata. It's real. The video was recorded on May 21st, 2019, one night after the Cannes event. Silence. Then the judge spoke again. We'll accept it as potential evidence, but further confirmation will be needed. In the meantime, Ms. Grande will be issued a summons to appear. It was official. Ariana Grande was now part of the trial. That afternoon, news crews waited outside her home in Beverly Hills. Her team refused to comment. Fans camped outside with signs that read, "Don't stay silent," and "Tell the truth, Ariana." Inside the courtroom, Gigi tried to focus, but her hands kept shaking. Diddy watched her closely. She had always been graceful, but now she looked like someone waiting for the ceiling to fall. The court resumed with another set of messages. These ones from a group chat between 3 female celebrities who had all attended the Cannes party. Their names were redacted in court, but context made them obvious. One message read, "Diddy's asking too many questions. If he goes public, we all go down." Another read, "Why don't we offer him a label deal? Keep him busy for a few years?" Diddy shook his head. "That was their plan," he said quietly to his lawyer. "Offer power, but take your voice." The courtroom moved on to another piece of evidence, a flight manifest from a private jet that had flown from Cannes to Ibiza 2 nights after the party. On that list were 6 names: Gigi, Ariana, 2 modeling agency executives, 1 major fashion CEO, and the 6th? A name blacked out by the court, for now. But Diddy already knew who it was. He had seen her walk into that same jet while he stood outside the villa, wondering why she never said goodbye. He wasn't ready to say her name yet, but when the time came, he would. Because her name wasn't just another line in the scandal, it was the final thread holding the cover-up together. As court ended that day, Gigi left without saying a word. No press, no public statement. Her silence was louder than any denial. And Diddy? He sat in the back of the courtroom, letting the noise fade. He wasn't celebrating. He wasn't smiling. He knew what was coming. He knew what the next day would bring. Because the leak didn't just shake Gigi and Ariana's world, it had opened the door to the people behind them. The ones who funded the cover-ups, the ones who built the machine. And one of those people was ready to fight back. The 5th day of court started under tight security. Black SUVs lined the courthouse. Armed guards stood at the entrance. Something big was happening. Everyone felt it. Reporters whispered the same name again and again, Elijah Monroe. He wasn't a celebrity. He didn't post selfies. But everyone in the fashion, tech, and entertainment world knew exactly who he was. The billionaire investor. The shadow behind the brands. A man who had power in places most people didn't even know existed. And today, he was coming to court. Diddy sat calmly inside the courtroom. His hands were folded, his suit was clean. He had barely slept, but he didn't show it. His legal team leaned in close. "He's here," one of them whispered. The courtroom doors opened. The room went quiet. Elijah Monroe entered wearing a gray suit and black gloves. His face was unreadable. Not angry, not smug, just still. Gigi Hadid stood as he walked past. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. But she looked at him the way a soldier looks at their general. The judge entered moments later. "Today," he said, "we'll review submitted video evidence and address the requested witness appearance of Mr. Elijah Monroe." A screen was rolled into the room once again. The lights dimmed. Diddy's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, what you're about to see is a conversation recorded 2 weeks ago, in secret, between a modeling agency insider and a private investigator working on behalf of Mr. Combs." He turned to the screen. The video began. It showed a luxury restaurant in New York. 2 people sat in a private booth. One of them wore a wire. The audio was clear. "We've been told to stall the trial. If it drags on, the media will move on," said the agency insider. "Told by who?" "Elijah. He said the court could be persuaded." "With what?" "Money, silence, maybe a deal." The room erupted. Gasps, shouts. Even the judge's mouth opened slightly. Elijah didn't flinch. He sat still, adjusting his gloves slowly. Diddy watched him like a man who had waited years for this moment. The judge banged his gavel. "Order! Order now!" Diddy's lawyer stepped forward again. "Your Honor, this tape suggests active efforts to delay or interfere with justice, including possible bribes to court officials." Gigi's lawyer stood. "This is hearsay. That man was not authorized to record or represent this court." The judge silenced him. "Sit down. The recording is admissible, and if proven true, this court will act accordingly." Then the unthinkable happened. Diddy stood up. "Your Honor," he said, "I would like to speak again. Not as a witness, not as a musician, as a man." The judge nodded slowly. "You may proceed." Diddy turned to the jury. "I spent most of my life thinking I had power. Fame, awards, money. I thought that made me strong. But I wasn't strong. I was scared. I stayed quiet when people were getting hurt. I let them turn me into a puppet." He took a deep breath. "They offered me deals, labels, billion-dollar partnerships. All I had to do was look the other way. And I almost did. I almost let them win." He looked at Elijah now. "But I couldn't live with myself knowing I had the chance to stop it, and didn't." He pulled out a folder from his briefcase and handed it to the court clerk. "These are full transcripts of every conversation I had with Mr. Monroe's people over the last 5 years. Times I was told to shut up. Times I was offered protection. Times I was threatened." The clerk handed it to the judge. He began reading quickly. Diddy continued. "This isn't just about Gigi Hadid. She was a piece in a much bigger puzzle, a face, a name. But the real players, the ones who own the agencies, the record labels, the magazines, they've been hiding behind her." He looked around the courtroom. "Not anymore." The room was dead quiet. For a full minute, the judge didn't speak. Then, he looked up from the folder. "Court will recess for 1 hour," he said. "All parties involved in this new evidence will be reviewed under seal, including Mr. Monroe." Elijah finally stood. He didn't speak. He didn't protest. He simply walked out, followed by his lawyers and bodyguards. Gigi looked shaken. Her hands covered her face. Her eyes were red. Diddy didn't even look at her. His eyes stayed on the judge's bench. As the courtroom emptied, the media exploded outside. "Diddy drops bomb on billionaire Monroe. Bribery tapes shake courtroom. Is Gigi just a pawn?" Fans were no longer just watching. They were rallying. Protests were being planned in New York and Paris. Social media demanded resignations. Modeling agencies were being investigated. Back in his private room, Diddy sat alone. He knew what he had done today. He hadn't just testified. He hadn't just accused. He had declared war. And now, the real power was going to strike back. The courtroom was different on the final day. It wasn't just the security or the reporters or the weight of the headlines hanging in the air. It was the feeling that something huge was about to happen. That whatever had been hidden for years was finally about to come out, fully and loudly, without filters. Inside, Diddy sat in his usual seat, calm but focused. He had carried this burden for too long. This wasn't just about clearing his name. It was about protecting the people who had been silenced, forgotten, left behind. Gigi Hadid walked in shortly after. She looked smaller than before. Not physically. She was still dressed in all black, her posture upright. But something in her energy had changed. Her eyes didn't scan the room. She didn't look at the press benches or her team. She only looked down at her hands, which were now fidgeting constantly in her lap. The judge entered. "This is the final day of testimony," he announced. "Following today's events, we will close public hearings and prepare for final motions." Everyone sat up straighter. Reporters got ready. Diddy's lawyer leaned over and whispered, "You ready for this?" Diddy nodded once. The judge looked to the clerk. "Proceed with the final witness." The courtroom doors opened, and gasps filled the room. A woman walked in, slowly but with purpose. Tall, elegant, older, but sharp, powerful. Her hair was gray, her heels loud against the floor. Her name was Celeste Rowe. She wasn't famous to the public, but inside the industry, she was feared. The former CEO of Vistage Management, one of the most elite fashion and entertainment firms in the world. She hadn't been seen in over 5 years. People thought she retired. Some said she vanished. But today, she came back to speak. She walked to the front and raised her right hand. The courtroom watched, frozen. "I'm here voluntarily," she said. "No one forced me." Diddy looked at her with surprise. He hadn't known she would come. Celeste spoke clearly. "In 2019, I received a report from one of my staff members. It detailed a party in Cannes. That same party this court has heard so much about. I was told that several high-profile individuals, including Gigi Hadid, had taken part in something organized. Something that wasn't legal." She paused. The room was dead quiet. "I was told there were young artists invited under false promises. Models told they'd be meeting mentors. Singers told they'd be offered record deals. But instead, they were pressured. Some were touched. Some were filmed." Gasps. Cries. The judge asked for silence again. Celeste continued, "I tried to shut it down. I called the men funding the event. I called agency heads. No one listened. A week later, I was told to leave the company, or they would leak private photos of me. They said I knew too much." Her voice cracked. "And I left. I disappeared. I thought I could forget it. But when I saw the headlines about Diddy, I knew I had to come back." Diddy stared at her. He nodded once, not with anger, not with pride, just recognition, like two soldiers in the same war. Then came the moment no one expected. The judge asked Gigi Hadid to stand. She looked like a statue for a moment. Then slowly, she stood up. Her hands trembled. Her eyes welled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. The judge spoke. "Ms. Hadid, before we proceed to close the hearing, you are being given one chance. Not to confess, not to defend, but to speak freely. Do you wish to?" The room was still. Everyone waited. Gigi took a deep breath. Then she stepped forward. "I was young," she said softly. "And stupid. I thought I was just playing along, just doing what others were doing. I didn't understand the weight of my actions until I saw the pain in his eyes." She turned to look at Diddy. "I didn't hurt him directly, but I helped protect the people who did. I stayed quiet. I smiled on red carpets. I knew things and I said nothing, because I was scared. Because I thought if I just looked perfect, no one would ask questions." She wiped her face quickly. "But this isn't about me anymore. This is about the ones we ignored, the ones who vanished, the ones who were used." She turned back to the judge. "I accept the consequences." The room exploded in whispers. The judge banged his gavel. "We will review Ms. Hadid's statement in full and proceed to sentencing discussions in chambers," he said. Court adjourned. Outside, the crowd didn't scream. They didn't cheer. They just stood, stunned. Some cried, some hugged. Some simply held signs in silence. Diddy walked out slowly. No sunglasses this time. No bodyguards blocking his path. People moved aside. They let him walk through, unbothered, almost sacred. Later that night, in his hotel room, Diddy stood at the window. The city lights blinked back at him. The fight wasn't over. There were still more names to be exposed, more systems to bring down. But for the first time in a long time, the silence was gone. Someone had finally listened.